Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on 11 Alive Plus. I'm Aisha Howard.
And I'm Cheryl Preheim. Right now, we are under a weather impact alert, under a tropical storm warning as Georgia and the metro is bracing for Helene.
And this storm is expected to move in today, packing rain and strong winds. 11 Alive will be with you all day long, keeping you weather aware.
All right, let's get to that all-important weather forecast, our weather impact alert, with our team coverage, kicking it off with meteorologists Chesley McNeil and Nicole Hartford. Hey, Chesley.
Good morning. We are looking at the possibility for severe weather in our area. We're talking about very heavy rain. We're talking about wind. It's going to be one of those days, folks, where we have to be ready. If you're looking outside right now, if you live in the Atlanta metro area, you're probably saying, well, I only see some light rain around. In fact, I don't even see my trees moving. Yeah, the winds are very light right now. We're expecting those winds to pick up as the storm gets closer to us. It is right now down into the Gulf, far enough away that we really won't see those impacts as far as the winds go and that very heavy rain until later on tonight. But we are calling this an all-day event. We had the rain in the area yesterday. Very heavy rain, of course, that has loosened up the ground just a little bit. So once those winds begin to kick in, you're talking about trees toppling over. So rain will be an issue. Of course, that's going to lead to flooding in our area. And we already have some out there right now. You're looking at winds, and we're also talking about the possibility for tornadoes. Brief spin-up tornadoes, certainly possible. A little bit likely over toward our easternmost counties, but we could see that here in the metro area as well. So we have to be on the lookout for that. Any type of trees falling could lead to it toppling over on power lines, and that could lead to power outages. And likely we'll see that, especially when our winds get as high as tropical storm force. We're talking about winds 40 to 50, maybe even up to 60 miles per hour at times. That's going to lead to some power outages. So you need to have the necessary precautions, folks. When get to your safe place, of course, and in that safe place, you need to have the essentials, what we call like snacks, things like that. Also, a way to communicate, like your phone, right? You want to keep a charger there so that your phone can be charged up and you can get all the alerts that we send out. And also batteries, for maybe a weather radio if you have that, or maybe even have a TV that's powered, right? And you've got a little antenna there where you can get a signal, because we are going to be broadcasting, folks, pretty much all day long, letting you know exactly where the storm is, where it's headed, and what you need to do to keep yourself and your family safe. Right now, still a Category 1 hurricane. This is as the latest update from the Hurricane Center at 5 a.m. We'll get another update here within an hour, about 8 o'clock. Right now, packing winds up to 90 miles per hour. The storm right there in the Gulf will continue to slide further off to the north, moving at a pretty decent clip, too. We're looking at it moving up to the northeast at about 12 miles per hour. Has finally taken some shape and form here, so that's good. But we'll continue to slide further off to the north. You can see it impacting Florida right now. Those outer bands starting to move into places like Tampa. This is the strongest part of the storm, and so yeah, they're feeling the brunt of it. Right along the west coast of Florida is where you're going to feel some of those stronger winds as it continues to move toward the Big Bend area. That is where it is expected to make landfall later on this evening, but not before turning into a Category 3 hurricane, possibly up to a Category 4, but a Category 3 would be considered a major hurricane. We're talking winds up to 120 miles per hour, maybe a little higher than that. It will make landfall tonight. We're expecting to make landfall in the Big Bend area. You can see where the coastline there is shaded in the red there. That is where we have, or where we're looking at that landfall. And then that will continue to slide further off to the north. Now, still as a hurricane in parts of South Georgia. Hurricane force winds possibly there. Places like Valdosta, into Statesboro. You'll be feeling the brunt of the storm as it continues to push in. Once the storm moves over land, that's where it starts to weaken a little bit. No longer has the warm waters to really feed the system, and so it moves over land, starts to downgrade a little bit. It's going to take some time as it continues that forward speed up to the north. Once it reaches the Atlanta metro area, we're expecting it to be down to possibly a tropical storm. And so you're still talking about some very strong winds associated with that. We'll continue to weaken as it slides further off to the north over toward parts of Tennessee and Kentucky, where it will meander around just a little bit there before making its way a little bit further over toward the east. And so our conditions will start to get better here once we get into, let's say, late Friday going into Saturday morning. The weekend for now looks to be okay. We will have a couple clouds around on Saturday with a small chance for rain, but nowhere near what we're experiencing even right now in the city. We'll talk about these impacts in detail now. You're talking about the heavy rain that could be around the area. We're looking at rain equaling up to about, let's say 8 to 10 inches of rainfall. Could be higher in some spots. That's a lot of water that we have to deal with, especially with what we already received yesterday. So you know that there's going to be some flooding issues, maybe even on some of the roadways as we got those clogged streams, drains, that will start to back up a little bit. So there are some spots on some of the highways, maybe even in your neighborhood or near your neighborhood, that will start to pond on the roadways there. So be on the lookout for that. Certainly that's going to be the case because of the rain around all day long long and all through the night. That's going to lead to some flooding. So we have a flood watch that remains in effect through Friday evening. Where you see these highlighted greens in here, that is where we're already starting to see some minor flooding taking place on some of our area creeks and streams. You will continue to watch that, and I'm sure that more of these areas will start to pop up on the map as we head through the day. But generally speaking, a flood watch area-wide. In fact, all of North Georgia under that flood watch until Friday evening. All right, when we look at the probability for the winds, you're looking at this purple area here, 100% probability for 30+ mile per hour winds, right? That's going to be greatest down here to the south, where we have that hurricane watch. But then you notice up toward the metro area, it's to about a 70-80% chance for those winds to be that strong. And so it's a good possibility for the winds to be that strong, which is going to do that damage on the trees. Here it is hour by hour, and you can see as the center of circulation starts to move into our area, we'll be talking about winds in the 40 and 50 mile per hour range. Stopped it here by 4:30 in the morning on Friday. You're looking at winds up to about 60 miles per hour over toward the Athens area. Certainly the further east you go, the stronger those winds will be. And this is if the center of circulation stays to the east of the city of Atlanta. Now, any further to the west, we'll get those higher wind gusts in the metro area, places like Duluth and Gainesville. You're looking at Gainesville right now, and 40+ mile per hour winds there. Even over toward the west, you're talking about 35 mile per hour winds as that system continues to push through. Further up to the northwest, by the time we get to 9:30, 10 o'clock, mid-morning, expecting that center of circulation to be out of our state and further off to the north. Right now, the Weather Service has, or the Hurricane Center has it as a pretty quick mover, which is good news for us. It moves in, moves right out. We don't want it lingering over our areas because you're talking about these effects lasting longer in the area. So as it moves to the north, we're looking at 30 mile per hour winds plus right on through about mid-morning on Friday, and then gradually those winds will start to taper off a little bit as the storm continues to push to the north. So you're talking about sustained winds, maybe up to 25 miles per hour, lasting for a number of hours, starting at 3 o'clock in the morning and lasting right on through about 9 o'clock in the morning. And so that could do a lot of damage again to our trees. Hard for our trees to sustain that kind of wind for a long period of time, so they're definitely going to be knocked over. If not the trees, you're talking about limbs being loosened from the trees, and that could blow around as well. That could create some damage as well. As far as the severe weather threat from the Storm Prediction Center, we're talking about the greatest risk would be down toward our coastline. And so our easternmost counties, southeasternmost counties under a level 3 threat. That is an enhanced risk for severe weather. And that's followed by up toward Augusta, that slight risk, which is level 2. That's that yellow area that you see. Up toward the metro area, once you get up to Athens, Macon, and into Atlanta, you're talking about a level 1 threat or a marginal risk for severe weather. So I'd say in and around these areas is where we could see these brief spin-up tornadoes. You get that friction taking place, and you get these little brief spin-ups that take place, and that could do damage to your home, okay, or your roof. So we're watching out for that. Once you get up toward the Rome area, you're talking about a general threat for a few thunderstorms to be around the area, but I'd even say there you could possibly see maybe a brief spin-up. Entire northern Georgia under a tropical storm warning right now. That's because we're anticipating seeing those tropical storm force winds that could be in the area, all right, and mainly through the overnight going into tomorrow morning. Once you get down toward Macon and southward, that's where we have that red area there. That is where we have hurricane warnings that are in effect. Again, this being a category 3, possibly as it makes landfall, will stay at hurricane strength as it starts to slide into our state. Our southernmost counties will be under the gun. I'm talking about a lot of gusty wind along with that heavy rain that's going to be around. Notice right now the heaviest rain is over toward our east. So over toward Augusta is where we're seeing that. You may be seeing a flash of lightning or two, so a couple thunderstorms in that forecast area right now. Once you make your way over toward Athens and into Atlanta, the rain starts to let up just a little bit. So it's light showers right now, maybe even some drizzle in some spots. It appears that Rome, you don't have any rain right now. There could be some drizzle, but all this will be making its way up toward us, so that rain intensifying through the day. Can't stress that enough. And so even though we don't have, the storm is down in the Gulf right now and not impacting our area directly, we still are dealing with some of that rain. The winds will stay on the light side for much of the day, but we will be dealing with that rain, and it will start to intensify as we head through the day. You got some moderate showers over toward Toccoa right now. Again, light for Elberton, over toward Athens, over toward Gainesville, down toward Loganville, all light rain. The heavy rain now over toward Stapleton. This is just outside of our viewing area, but down toward Sandersville, for example, is where you're seeing that very heavy rain over toward the Augusta area as well, with few lightning strikes. Once we get into the heating of the day, expecting more of those thunderstorms to be around, but social circle over toward Atlanta, very, very light rain, just adding to what we've already received out there. Here's a better look at it from the wide angle here, not coming from the west, east, but from the south. Again, as that area of low pressure, as that storm moves a little bit closer to us, the outer bands will begin to affect our area. So we'll be seeing some embedded thunderstorms in a few of those that's going to drop that very heavy rain. Temperatures outside right now are in the 60s. I think that's where we're going to stay for much of the morning. We'll see that temperature get up to about 71, 73 degrees for an afternoon high today. So not much change as far as the temperatures go. We'll stay in the low 60s. A lot of folks have off, which is good news, right? We'll have to worry about going in today, but those of us that have to go outside know that it's going to be soggy. And the later you wait to go outside, the more we're going to see our conditions deteriorate. So that rain really starts to pick up for us once we get toward the afternoon. I'm expecting by about 4 or 5 o'clock this afternoon, very moderate to heavy rain off and on will be in our area. And then to couple that, we'll have to see those winds begin to pick up. So that's when things will really start to go downhill. We have the wind and the rain that we have to deal with. Fortunate it will be through the overnight. So hopefully everything will hold up as far as your house goes, where you're going to be for this afternoon. Go ahead and start planning now, at least where you're going to be when the impacts will be the greatest. All right. And again, we're talking about really through the overnight going into Friday morning. Even Friday morning, if you have plans to get out and go places, you definitely want to wait. If you can wait till at least mid-morning where conditions will start to get a little bit better, that would be a little bit better as far as your planning goes. Here's how it plays out. Our forecast track model, and you can follow along with me hour by hour. The time is right there at the top of the screen. It shows, at least for this morning, again, that heavy rain over toward the east. Where we are, the rain is on the light side, a little bit more isolated or scattered. Now, you'll notice as we get toward the afternoon, this is by 10:30, how the rain becomes a little bit more widespread. And with each stop I make, you're going to notice that each stop we get a little bit more widespread. So by the time we get to 4 o'clock this afternoon, a little bit more widespread as far as those yellows go. That's the moderate rainfall, and a few more of those orange and red pockets in here. We will have a couple thunderstorms embedded in a few of these. That's where we can see some of those tornadoes popping up, and you notice that's over toward our east by 4 o'clock. But then as we head further into the overnight, so here we are by midnight. Notice how widespread that yellow is, how widespread that orange is. That's talking about heavy rain through the overnight. This is where we're going to start to see a lot of that ponding on the roadways. The rain that we've already had has begun to run off a little bit. It has nowhere to go. And so whatever rain falls through the overnight is just going to start to pile up. And so this is where the roadways will start to be a little bit more impactful as far as flooding goes. Those flood-prone spots in our neighborhoods, this is where it will start to be impactful. If you don't know how deep water is, you don't want to roll through that. You don't want to walk through it either. And so at nighttime, you definitely can't see that. And so this is the time that you really need to be in your safety spot there. Here comes that area, the center of circulation as it begins to move through. That's when the winds will start to pick up on us. That's when we could see those winds up to about 50 and 60 miles per hour. And so we'll have to be on the lookout for that. That continues to push further off to the north. Our conditions will get better as we head through the morning. So by the time we get to midnight, stop here at 7 o'clock, and you notice that heavy rain is still on top of us. Those winds are still pretty gusty. But by the time we get to 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, a lot of that will begin to lift off to the north. Stop here at 11 o'clock, and you notice most of that rain is out of the area. We'll see a few isolated showers around, but those gusts will still be with us. And I think that through the day, on Friday, we'll still be dealing with those pretty gusty winds in the forecast area. Even the clouds will start to break up once we get toward the afternoon. Now, I don't think it will stay that way because the area of low pressure will start to meander just to our north. So it will rotate some more clouds back in, but we'll start to see some breaks in those clouds. This will be the time where you get a chance to get out and assess any damage that happens to fall in your neighborhood as far as those downed trees go, especially on any roadways. The reason why I'm saying you want to stay off the road at night is not only for the flooding, but if there is a downed tree, it may be tough to see until you get on top of it. Keep in mind that our area is very hillious, and so you may be in your neighborhood especially rolling up on an area where you don't see a downed tree and you get right up on it and you have to hit your brakes and try to stop abruptly, and that could cause you to slide a little bit right on into that tree that may be down. And so you want to stay at least until we start to see some daylight and you can get out there and assess your area or where you need to go. You'll hear reports from us, of course. We'll give you all the latest on any damaged areas, especially for those power outages, right? That are going to be in our area. Again, our conditions will start to get a little bit better as we head into Friday late afternoon, going into the evening, and then we'll start to get a little bit better as we head through the upcoming weekend. Now, Nicole Hartford is here with me and want to get her perspective on these storms as well. I'm going to toss it over to her for the very latest on the storms. Good morning, Nicole.
Good morning, Chesley. It is going to be a very busy next 24 to maybe even 36, 48 hours here, and this is just the start. We picked up a lot of that heavy rainfall yesterday yesterday, and we're still left with, at this point, what is predominantly light rain. This is our current view from the Georgia Tech campus. You can see some of the raindrops on the camera lens there, but overall cloudy and just dreary. Our radar at this point, not incredibly active. Yes, we're seeing a lot of green, but it's predominantly light rainfall that extends throughout portions of North Georgia. You notice, though, that even just on our radar over the course of the last hour, we're starting to see more pockets of the heavier rain, the greens, the yellows that start to show up instead of just that lighter green color. Right now, inside the perimeter, we've got mainly that light, consistent drizzle, but down on the south side into portions of Forest Park, that's where we're starting to see the rain pick up just a little bit. We've also got some pockets of some heavier rainfall up into far northeast Georgia, where those showers are already starting to intensify. Now this is when we're starting to see the impacts from Hurricane Helene. Yesterday, our rainfall was actually associated with a cold front, not directly related to the tropics, but some of those outer rain bands are now starting to feed all of that tropical moisture across the state. Some of that rainfall already a little bit heavier down into portions of South Georgia. We also currently have a tornado warning into South Carolina right now, and that's where we're going to be monitoring the closest for not only that risk for some brief spin-up tornadoes, but also for the threat for some severe storms that could be embedded within these showers and thunderstorms. Our severe risk here, much lower, but still something we'll need to look out for. As we go throughout the next 2 days, you will need to stay weather aware. We have that weather impact alert for all day today as well as all day tomorrow. We'll be talking about it pretty much nonstop for the next couple of days. The rain, which at times will be very heavy, the winds, which will be gusty, as well as that low threat for some strong to severe storms. So what can you do now? While the rainfall remains light, while the winds haven't picked up yet, if you haven't already made those preps to make sure you're ready in case you lose power, now's the time to do so. So you can make sure that any of your electronics that you need, especially a phone or weather radio, are properly charged so that you are able to get the most recent updates on the impacts of Helene, as well as any weather alerts that are issued. You also can get outside. Make sure that anything you have that is unsecured is either secured or brought indoors. If you notice a couple tree limbs that perhaps look like they may not withstand gusty winds, just trim them real quick. The rain right now, still light. It's really your last opportunity to do it in the next couple hours before that rainfall starts to pick up. We've been talking about the impacts, and we're still anticipating big impacts here in North Georgia. For today, heavy rainfall that will eventually lead to flooding. The rainfall itself, especially through the first half of the day today, may end up staying mainly light, but we've already picked up a lot of rainfall, and it's that consistent nature of the rain that will essentially compound and lead to the flooding. We also are anticipating gusty winds. The strongest of the winds will likely be later this evening into the overnight and then early tomorrow morning. That's when we're also monitoring for that potential for some storms as well as a brief spin-up tornado. The heavy rainfall and the flooding will linger into early tomorrow. We'll see our highest wind gusts early Friday morning with gusts of 40 to 60 miles per hour. And in some spots, especially out towards the east of the city, we may see wind gusts closer to 70 miles per hour or even higher. But Friday will be the day when things start to settle down. The rainfall will clear. The winds will gradually become less breezy. In anticipation of additional heavy rainfall, all of North Georgia is under that flood watch throughout the day today and tomorrow. So that flood watch just means that the heavy rainfall could lead to flooding. The most important thing to take away from this flood watch is that if you see standing water on the roads, do not try to drive through it. Obey any barricades or signs that you may see telling you not to proceed. And if you don't have to be on the roads the next couple of days, my advice would just be to stay off them. Hunker down at home. home, don't drive throughout, especially while it's dark outside tonight and into tomorrow morning. Our flood watch will remain in effect. And in addition to those flood prone areas around streams, creeks, the typical spots where we typically see the water pool, we could see flooding elsewhere as well. We also have tropical storm warnings that extend throughout the state as well as into Florida, and then hurricane warnings where the center of circulation is expected. Those tropical storm warnings extend up into North Georgia. So all of Metro Atlanta, all of North Georgia included in that tropical storm warning. That hurricane warning, where hurricane force winds are expected, currently goes up into Upson County and the Macon area, but does not continue up towards the north into the Atlanta metro. I want to caution you, though, we'll see wind gusts that are strong tropical storm strength, bordering on even hurricane strength. The difference will be very minimal here. It will still lead to a number of downed trees as well as downed power lines because of the gusty winds. It could also lead to a little bit of perhaps damage to siding, roofs. If you have your car outdoors and you have the option to bring it inside, I would certainly recommend it at this point. So here's Hurricane Helene right now. This has been strengthening pretty slowly throughout the last 24 hours. It became a hurricane yesterday and remains a Category 1 hurricane as it moves through the open water of the Gulf of Mexico. Right now, the water in the Gulf of Mexico is exceptionally warm, which will lead to some rapid intensification as it continues up towards the northeast. It has shifted that turn it started to make up towards the northeast. It was previously moving off towards the northwest and has started to make an easterly turn towards the state of Florida. It's also picking up its speed, so it's moving at about 12 miles per hour. I want to note that the sustained winds are 90 miles per hour, but we do have wind gusts that are much stronger. This is our most recent forecast track from the National Hurricane Center. We'll actually have a new one coming in shortly. They're releasing another one at 8 o'clock this morning, so in just about a half hour. Right now, the current forecast is for it to become a major Category 3 hurricane as it moves through the Gulf of Mexico. This could border on a strong Category 3, maybe even a Category 4. That official forecast from the National Hurricane Center has gone back and forth a little bit, calling for either a Category 3 or a Category 4 hurricane. And again, I want to stress that that difference between Category 3 and Category 4 is not very much. Either way, there will be devastating flooding, storm surge, as well as wind damage along the Big Bend of Florida where this makes landfall. While this is forecast to weaken as it moves into the state of Georgia, it may manage to maintain Category 1 hurricane strength not only into South Georgia but up into portions of the state as well, so producing very gusty winds. The center of circulation looks like it may end up coming up off towards the east of the Atlanta metro area. That's important because typically with these landfalling tropical systems, the strongest winds, the heaviest rainfall, and the tornado risk are usually higher on the eastern side of the center of circulation. So that would put us on the slightly quieter but still very windy and rainy side of this center of circulation. Our spaghetti models, you can see them here, pretty good consensus with that easterly track of the center of circulation, but any small shift could have big impacts to our forecast, and we are still anticipating, again, the flooding rains as well as the gusty winds. We'll be watching this really closely. This is a little different from a lot of the tropical systems we've seen because typically they get pushed up the east coast. But in this scenario, I mentioned that cold front that brought us the rainfall yesterday. That's an area of low pressure that will actually suck up all the remnants of Helene and essentially bring it off towards the west before ejecting it off towards the northeast. Now for us, the biggest impacts will end up being tonight and into tomorrow morning. That's when we have the highest flood risk with a moderate to high risk for some excessive rainfall that could lead to flooding. We also have a low end risk for some severe weather as well. We're talking rainfall totals on top of what we've already picked up of about 4 to 6 inches. We'll have more on your hour by hour forecast tracking Hurricane Helene coming up.